Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
We hope you had a good weekend and welcome back to another content video. So we're just going to go into a bit more psychology today and more specifically about how this week's been and how we've traded and kind of managed ourselves through these situations, and obviously to bring about more thought of how you guys can manage yourself in certain situations, which is obviously very important as a trader.
So, I guess to start with, it's good to know that most things come to light through self-questioning. So, asking yourself why and seeking the answer, right? So, for example, what are you happy with and what are you not happy with, right? That everyone's going to answer that question differently. Everyone's going to be unique. So, this is why we need to be asking ourselves these things in the moment, right? To better understand ourselves so we can make, better decisions overall in our trading day, in our trading week. So one of the first things we're going to cover is when to trade versus when not to trade. And when I say not to trade, that doesn't necessarily mean not being involved in the charts, although it can, but also observing, right? So choosing in the moment when you want to be an observer versus a trader, right? A participator. So like this is where we want to start, right? So we know that the markets start on a Monday. So the first thing we want to do the weekend before we start trading is know what we're doing this week, right? Know what you're doing this week. So we want to know what we're focusing on and what our focus is. We want to know what we've got planned for the week, both inside and outside of trading, right? And then we're asking ourselves, right, are you set up and prepared for what's to come, right? Both, excuse me, both in price delivery and right. So
Obviously outside of trading as well, because basically if you've got a busy week coming up as well, which is another thing that might be a reason to not trade for that week, as obviously trading's quite full on and requires a lot of focus. If you're doing something outside of trading that you maybe needs your focus, and that's the time to maybe protect your account and not trade and just become an observer for the week. So these are things that we can do, obviously if we're planned and we're planning our weeks and we're prepared for the week. So
but this is where how we can essentially set ourselves up, and what we're doing, right, is trying to give ourselves that ideal environment to trade from. And that ideal environment typically for the mind is one that a mind that is aware and understood of what the environment actually is, and what you actually have to do that day. So yeah, we want to be prepared both mentally and physically, right? And when we're looking at when we're going on in our trading week, we need to learn from our experiences, right? So it's not, and that's not just from a technical standpoint, but also how we handle different situations that come up, right? So for examples, there might be a situation to do with an entry, there might be a situation to do with maybe being in a meeting and missing an entry, right? Missing a big trade, right? And it's in these moments that we want to understand how can you learn, right, in that moment, and then look to implement some sort of solution or fixes for these situations that arise. And they don't have to be like bad ones, right? Don't have to be super, mega bad and create super emotions, but we understand that we have a tool, we have an understanding that we can use, and essentially that is, providing yourself with that solution, that fix. And make this solution, make these are the things that become your focus, become our focus, right? These are the things that now we want to start having good intention on, right? With the understanding that these things are going to progress and you're going to gain over time, meaning that you're going to, overcome whatever stage you're in.
or prepare yourself for different scenarios in the future. Like if you can realize that something works when you're in a current state of mind or a certain state of mind, and the action to maybe get you out of that state of mind or to bring you back to balance, then these are things that you can use in the future in different experiences, but you can use the same process. Obviously through understanding yourself.
So Yeah, what trade your part, but what state of
Oh yeah,
mind?
so cool. So the next part we wanted to talk about was obviously understanding when you're in the flow state. And that flow state is not going to be anything chart related. It's going to be something to do with your feeling, how you're feeling, and that's going to obviously be reflected in your performance on the chart as well. So this is something that you obviously need to obviously get there, understand what it is, understand how it feels, become familiar with it, so that when you are out of that flow state, you can do something to bring yourself back into the flow state, or you can understand, or you can even start to understand or build an understanding of how you got into that flow state and then get back there. Because obviously knowing that that's your best place for trading or your performance, these are times that you want to be really focused on what got you there and what's going to keep you there as well, because that's how you're going to be able to maintain and continue to grow.
And it's
Yeah.
not, we're not trying to say, right, because I'm not in a flow state, I'm gonna start, being and thinking in a self-sabotaging state of mind. So, rather than being solution orientated, you're now hyper focused on the issue. Right. And that's essentially over time what you're doing there is you're self-sabotaging, because that self-talk in that moment is not for success, it's for the opposite. You're not building yourself to success, you're building yourself essentially to failure and to repeat the same thing again. So, we want to, it's not about, oh, I'm out the flow, so I need to hurry up and get back in. It's like, right, I'm out the flow, right? What is this feeling? And taking our time to understand, because it's the understanding that's going to get you back there from a sustainability perspective.
Because you will go back there again. That's another thing that's also possible, that Anton's basically saying, understand what you're going through in this moment and this emotion, because if you do come back here in the future, you become more familiar with it, and then you can understand, how can I get back into the flow state. So being more aware in that moment is just going to bring more, it's just going to help you to learn more about that certain experience or that certain emotion or that certain trigger. And obviously all these things are going to be creating certain experiences on and off the chart. So it's just important.
Exactly. And if you don't know what the flow state is, then go look into it, right? Go look, like Google it, understand the flow state, maybe read a book or two on it, anything that's well recommended, and look, give yourself the understanding on what the flow state is and how people talk about it, so then you can start to seek it and obtain those same sorts of feelings. And also know if you're not sure if you are or not, then obviously being aware of what the flow state brings and how it makes you feel through other people's experiences, obviously is going to allow you to see more and understand more. So yeah, definitely seek it, right? It's something that we should all be actively working towards.
Yeah, so then the last point on this one was, this is obviously something we've learned from experience as well, is obviously weekends are a good time to just reflect on the week, because these are times we're going to be in a more relaxed environment. You don't have any pressure of thinking about trading or being at the charts at certain times, and you can really dig into your performance. And obviously you'll see things that you didn't see during the week when you were maybe in the flow or out of the flow, or in certain emotions, or going through certain experiences, or maybe you had to go from trading straight to work, and that transition, you didn't have much time to think, and then the weekend then just becomes a time where you can really just understand the whole week and your performance and your how you felt emotionally, and then essentially learn and bring that into the next week. And that all again links into the preparation that we were talking about earlier. This reflecting on the week is also preparation for next week, because if you're reflecting on this week and thinking about how you went good and what you could improve on, for example, then that gives you your next focus for the week ahead. So that all links to preparation as well.
And it's right. We're in this less like it's the weekends are good for, obviously. It's not going to be the same for everyone. Everyone's going to be slightly different, right? Your that stage for you might be the end of the day, right? Or when you're marking up, right? You may be able to put yourself into that, less ego, less bias type mindset, and able to see the chart freely. This is obviously something that we want to be able to obtain. That's why we mark up at the end of the day. But the point here is to really use that time, whatever that time is for you, to build that understanding of what has happened to go over the experiences that you was part of, and look to see what you can take as for your advantage and implement. As Burton's saying, use that as your focus for the coming week. And this is why trading becomes enjoyable, because I'm not trying to bank 100%. That's not my goal. I'm trying to be a better trader, both in my ability technically, but also in my decision making. And that ultimately comes down to, the understanding of myself and what I'm doing. Yeah.
Cool. So Chucks is just going to now show
look at that.
examples of ranges. I think that was everything from that one. Anyway.
See the gap button?
No, I don't even think that's much. What are we on? 15 minutes?
15. Yeah, I'm actually now. Yeah, no, it's a 10
No,
minutes.
only 10 bits.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Get a bit excited.
That's 5%, right? That's 5%. Yeah, react to that. Yeah, next.
Cool. Keeping it raw.
So the next section we wanted to talk about was frustration, which we're literally about to get into the charts now anyway. But yeah, so frustration versus a range. I think obviously, as we're gonna go over it now, but we can all probably experience maybe some frustration this week based on whether you caught a good. I mean, Burton, you can go on about this because
yeah, literally, this week has been very kind of up and down in terms of emotions. Honestly, for this week was pretty crazy because it's just been a week of ranging. So obviously, trades that I'd normally get into that run are obviously not running. So that can obviously can be quite frustrating, and was quite frustrating, but obviously it's just about learning and growing from this, because now that we understand that we're in maybe a ranging market, and obviously looking at price delivery again in technicals, and then we can go back over how obviously we performed in the moment, and emotions and frustrations and so on. It's all about learning from that. So when we are in a ranging market next time and you're able to identify it, it's then about banking maybe smaller profits. And obviously understanding that delivery over time, obviously, which is literally why we're here and still doing this and still learning. So there's always more to learn.
So literally what we're saying is look, you have to look at these things in terms of logic, because frustration, yes, it's definitely an emotion and it's definitely tangible. It's understandable why that happens, right? Because you've done a good job and you're not seeing the reward you're used to, right? Or you've done a good job and your expectations haven't been met, essentially. And that's perfectly fine. Of course, that can create frustration, and it's understandable. I think we're all smart enough to understand, where it starts from. But, think about this logically, right? So frustration versus a range, right? Why you can't, it doesn't make sense to be frustrated. We kind of just want to show you the logic here of why, this is what we want to remind ourselves of all the time, and this is what we want to show you. So you can essentially be in a range, right, from between session to session. So London session starts at a high, New York session starts at a low, and we're in between a range. Burton, I'll do it. Yeah, exactly. So see we've got the session times on here, right? So we can start to understand that, okay, if I'm trading these sessions, right, and I'm taking break evens, what I want to go on to understand is the logic of why I am taking break evens, not if I've done a good job or not. And not judging myself based on the trade, but actually judging myself based on my understanding. Because here we have an understanding that is, okay, we are in a range. Of course I'm going to take break evens. Why would you not take a break even in the range? It doesn't make sense, does it? Right? Unless you've caught the high, you've caught the low right at the edge, right? If the market is continuing to bounce in that range, the high or the low is going to get taken at some point in time. Right? So whether you're able to hold on to the trade because you've got the best best possible position, or you caught continuation and you get stopped out, right? It's an understanding that, okay, we're in the range, right? So it should not lead to frustration. But as Burton, as Burton's going to say, if you want to say that part about the what a range is there to create.
Yeah, obviously from like a BFI's perspective, a range is where all the money is transacted, which means they need lots of transactions. So obviously we've pretty much, most of us that have been in trading for a long time has probably read somewhere about like emotional trading, and ranges create that emotional trading. Obviously, in order to transact loads of orders, there needs to be buyers and sellers in the market. So it makes sense that it would be more frustrating to trade when you're stuck inside a range, because it's going to be more break evens, it's going to be more ins and outs, it's going to be smaller profits, maybe a couple of losses here and there, as it's a bit more difficult to understand the direction. And that's normal. That is literally just normal. That is the whole idea of creating a range in the market, to create emotion, to create more transactions and more buyers and sellers in the market at that certain point. So that's literally what the BFIs are doing from their perspective.
We know what the range goes on to create and what's happening between the range, right? So then what happens next is not a surprise. We know that rather this high or this low is going to get taken, right? That BFI intention is going to show us what, over time, what that does become. And the other thing I wanted to mention here, just while I'm drawing this on, is as much as so before I mentioned about the between the sessions, right? So you could be, long and short between the sessions, but understand you're in a range, and then also be long and short the weekly range, right? And still get taken out. So, it's not just about understanding the logic from a session perspective, but also understanding, right, when price is ranging over time, right, break evens are going to obviously present themselves more. So now we can understand that, and that's a logical understanding based off of the technical knowledge that we have. Now it becomes okay, right? There's a reason for this. I should expect to take more break evens, right? That's not a surprise to me. Right, that's how I handle it personally. Of course, win a range. So the best thing we could do in that situation, whether we've been long or short, is now think about our take profit and how we start to understand our take profit. And it goes on to say, you can go on to say this, right? Taking profit needs to be understood. It needs to be understood that taking profit is more than just clicking the button and taking that, that money, that monetary or that percentage value that you're looking at. It only comes down to, look, if you're taking a break even and you was running at say 1 to 15 or 1 to 10, it comes down to making a better decision in that moment, right? And why you was a participator in that moment. You need to be saying to yourself, right, what decisions do I need to be making? And this is where we need to understand, right? So this is where the question comes in to say, what are you happy with and what are you not happy with, right? Whether you're looking at that from a money, pounds or dollars, 2,000, 5,000, 15,000, or you're looking at it from a percentage, right? I want to see 10%, 15%, or 20% return from this trade, right? This is where you start to understand yourself, what type of trader you are, what type of targets you look for, what your intentions are in that moment. And this is what we want to work with, not work against, right? So we want to understand who you are in that moment, and we want to encourage the things that are allowing you to make the right decisions, essentially. What are the right decisions? Well, the right decisions are the ones that you're happy with, not what the market goes on to present, right? So it's, I just wanted to, look at that from a perspective of, look, if we're taking break evens in the range, what we can do to combat that is make better decisions in the moment to take profit, right? But if my trade is running at 1 to 7, I'm not going to take profit. I'm probably going to see a small profit or a loss. Sorry, not a loss, a break even. That's it, because I'm not happy with 1 to 7. Right, I'd much rather hold it, try and squeeze at 1 to 10. If it does look like it's exhausted, then make those decisions in the moment and trust my decisions and be happy with the decisions that I've made, not because they're random and they're sporadic, but they're made with intention and understanding because I monitor and watch how I'm trading. Right. So this is something, it's a skill. But yeah, and then essentially it's, look, when you're having these frustrations and you are frustrated, right? What do they lead to? When you're in that frustrated moment, what does it lead to? Does it lead to over trading? Does it lead to not caring? Right? Does it lead to being scared and taking profit? Maybe, right? If the market's moving against you, what does this frustration lead to? And then what are the solutions that you're implementing today, right? Because pretty much there's always an answer, and the answer is, it's not foreign because there's been loads of traders before us. So normally it's just about asking the questions to yourself and to the right people to get that, interpretation for yourself, and then try something and experiment with a new understanding that you have. So it's pretty straightforward, but yeah, it's making sure that you're understanding and you're showing yourself what that frustration leads to. So now you know why the solution needs to be implemented, and then you need to implement that solution right away, not next week or when you feel like it. It needs to be, okay, now I know what now I know what I need to do. I need to go on and do it because the market's is here every day for us.
That's sort of out of weekend.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing?
Cool. Obviously, the last bit was just obviously things that you can do to rebalance yourself, which is very important. Obviously, come into the chart with kind of a clear state of mind and a balanced state of mind, rather than thinking about something that's happened maybe previous, or a certain emotion or something else you're experiencing. Just be all in with the moment when you're at the charts, and obviously just learning and taking in as much as you can. And obviously when you're not in that state of mind, and you're in that unbalanced, maybe frustrated, not focused, these are times maybe to just walk away from the charts, because you're not going to find your answers by sitting on the charts. And obviously when we're at the charts is when we can potentially risk, and obviously risking money is could potentially lead to obviously potential losses that you don't want, just by being in a state of mind that isn't balanced. So ways to combat that is obviously to come out of that state of being and out of that environment, and to obviously just logically think and bring yourself back to balance. And when you're in that right state of mind, then come to the charts and focus and be ready to focus. And they're going to be the times that you probably thank yourself more for, because they may be times where you maybe would have taken 2, 3, 4, 5 losses, but now by walking away from the charts and kind of understanding yourself and understanding your emotion and how you felt and so on and so on, now you're able to understand that when I am in that emotion next time, maybe I take more losses. And you can then start to correlate your losses with how you're starting to feel. And then obviously that's where trading just becomes very much about psychology, because once you really understand the technicals, it's then just about really understanding yourself and certain states of minds that you're in when you're trading, and when you're at your best, when you're not at your best, and how you can use any sort of strategies to obviously help you to get back into balance, or to walk away when you're not in balance. And obviously these things are very important as well.
And it's not one thing is going to be the tick and hooray or everything is good. It's shit, okay, what do I have to try in order to get there?
Yeah.
Right. And that's all we need to dedicate ourselves to, because as soon as we start that journey, we've given ourselves
the intention.
Exactly. We've set the intention and we've started. So what do you think the outcome is going to be? So it's just a matter of timing, isn't it? That's how literally how me and Burton see things, and it's what has come to into fruition. It's what's manifested. It's not random. It's things that we spoke about, and it's the intention we've had has come to this point. So that getting back to rebalance is really important, especially like, I know there's obviously different people listen to this, people that are obviously have funds, live funds, and pretty quite a bit, to versus those that are obviously trying to seek that and get their piece. But this is information that is going to serve you, because when you are managing the bigger funds, right? Are you going to be someone that is sporadic and has FOMO? Likely not, right? So all of this, excuse me, all of this learning that we can do now is really going to allow us to perform really, really well when the money does start to come. And when I say perform really, really well, as Burton just said, if you can stop yourself from taking 4 losses, 5 losses every other day or every other week, you need to understand that compounds itself, right? Because you're seeing less loss on your account, you're seeing less drawdown, which means you're likely to see more upside. So these things are beneficial, and this is why we encourage. Look, there's no need to be a perfect trader. There's no need to see someone and say, "Oh, I want to take entries like them." No, because there's so much more to trading, not just to trade, right? There's also the psychology part there's also the self-understanding, there's also the understanding of the skill, and then the skill level, right? There's also the experience and the time dedicated, right? All of these factors are going to change, each of us, uniquely, but it's all the areas that we can focus on. So it doesn't necessarily have to be all about the entries or all about the trade, because those things will come over time, you know. It's really just about having that understanding and saying, look, I consider myself a professional trader. I don't say that lightly. Like, I say that because, listen, I'm an intelligent person based on the decisions I can make, right? Because I'm not out here tripping over my feet. I'm actually thinking about how I'm walking the same way I trade. I'm thinking about how I'm trading. I'm out here making logical decisions. So,
Tripping over his feet.
yeah, because that's what we got for people to understand, that you do so much thinking already. Your mind, subconscious processes so much already that you can tap into it so easily, just by asking yourself the questions. And that's why, as we said at the start, that self-questioning, that process of asking yourself why and seeking the answer is important. And that's literally what we've based NJAT on. That's why we don't answer questions with a clear, straightforward answer, because it's not about the answer, it's about you understanding what the answer is. And if it's given to you, you're less likely to go on to fully understand it. The same way we talk about the markets, about the understanding, and then the same way we talk about yourself. How are we meant to understand you if we don't know you? Right? We have to get to know you. We have to understand and look at your chart, because then we can offer much better, specific things that are going to help you. As we've seen from the people that we've helped so far. Yes. So the last point was so obviously, yeah, we've kind of got into the logic stuff. But
Yeah, I was literally just going to say, like, obviously the last bit that we just wanted to talk about was trades playing out versus obviously ones that don't. And obviously, Chucks, I'll let you start with this bit.
So, like, we're talking with logic here. We're not talking about with what we believe as individuals. We're trying to say, right, what is logical and what makes sense. So there's only really going to be 2 to 3 good trades per day, right? That are kind of straightforward,
or even moves, I would say, is probably a better word to describe. There's going to be 2 to 3 good moves in a day.
That are going to be straightforward.
Sometimes you just won't be able to catch that move. And sometimes you might see it late or not see it, but there'll be 2 to 3 moves a day in the market.
Right? So again, these ones are going to be the kind of straightforward ones, the ones that have a decent RR, that kind of will leave us happy, right? So the logic here is that 2 to 3 is what we're talking about is 1 trade per session. So there's going to be a really, really good trade in that session. That might be 1 to 7, 1 to 15, 1 to 30. We're not, obviously it's governed by the session and the distance and the potential XYZ. But what we're saying here is whatever that RR is we're going to be happy with it, right? Because we're kind of given that every day. And again, we're talking about 1 trade per session. So what we want to understand is, look, in that session, there's going to be trades that play out, and there's going to be trades that don't play out. There's going to be good trades and there's going to be great trades, right? There's going to be the ones you want to be in versus the ones you don't really want to be in. This is what we need to understand. We're not talking about like the best trades for the day. We're talking about your trades that you've taken that day, your actual trades, right? Not hypothetical or hindsight best trades. We're talking about, right, now you're taking trades. Out of the trades you've taken, what ones play out and what ones don't? Again, not necessarily down to percentage and stuff like that, but all the criteria that makes something good for you, right? Something that plays out, something that you're happy with, right? And these are the ones that you need to start focusing on, because what you're doing there is you're literally showing yourself over and over and over and over the type of trades that you take, the ones that play out, and obviously that comes about more, right? Brings more. So yeah, we just kind of wanted to end with, make sure you're putting focus on the trades that you're taking and where you're taking these trades, and then actually telling yourself, actually, this is the trade, my best trade today. How can I focus on that, or in and around that trade location? Yeah.
Cool. Well, that was the psychology video. Obviously, just wanted to just cover things that we learned from this week and just understandings that we've gained as well. Because obviously the majority of, when you've got the technicals, the majority of the importance should now be put onto the mind and the psychology and the emotions and so on and so on. So obviously we want to share that in its rawest form as much as possible. But yeah, guys, that's the psychology video. Obviously just a couple of things at the end here. Obviously happy 420 for, I think it's Tuesday. For any of those that obviously
celebrate
the ganja. Obviously we don't, so we'll just be obviously sitting on the sidelines and watching everyone enjoy themselves
in the park.
But yeah, and obviously the second thing we wanted to say is just well done to everyone and the progression, because obviously we're seeing it, and every time we come into Discord now, people are banging out the trades with great logic, great reasoning, and great understanding, and obviously coaching each other and being there for each other and helping each other, and obviously just continuing to grow. Obviously, I'm not trying to say this in a generic cringy way like most the communities, but it just in general, like everyone's real good people that are obviously growing and sharing their knowledge and continuing to progress. And obviously this is what we want to create in this small community that we have, is just people that really want to progress, really want to learn and have great ambition and want to do more to obviously help each other and help themselves. So it's great to see that everyone's putting in that work. And yeah, please continue, because we're literally seeing it and watching it, and it's good to be around.
And that's from us and the team, and also, shout out the team, right? Toby,
massive shout out to the team.
Patty, Marcy, Eunice. Like, I don't know how this has all come about, but me and Burton say every day, it's pretty crazy how all this has kind of come together, and I think it's really coming to show itself with seeing the people's actual progression, the members' actual progression. Yeah, and it is definitely noticeable, that's for sure. It's very, very noticeable, and people are picking up things very, very quickly as well. That's another thing I've noticed. So yeah, obviously we're doing something right, but as always, we're always happy to take feedback at the same time. So yeah, definitely appreciate everyone.
Definitely shout out everyone, shout out the team. But cool, I think that's everything. Let's have a productive week and get into it.
Yeah.
Catch you all later.